Hey gamers, Gil here, and welcome to my 100-hour review of Enshrouded, where I've braved the Shroud, built Gil's boxer barn, and defeated the new mountain biome. With countless survival crafting games out there, it's fair to ask, is Enshrouded worth your time and money in 2025? Welcome to the world of Embervale, where survival is a constant battle and creation is your greatest weapon. This is Enshrouded, a cooperative survival crafting action RPG set in a world consumed by a malevolent fog known as the Shroud. Whether you're a seasoned adventurer or a newcomer to the genre, there's something here for everyone. Grab your tools, ready your weapons, and prepare to explore the mysteries of Enshrouded. Let's get started. Beginning with character customization, it's decent. I've seen worse. You get a small range of options to make your character your own, including skin, hair, and eye color, plus your choice of wha sound. However, let's talk about the beards for a second. They're all scraggly, like you've been living in the Shroud for way too long already. It's a little disappointing for my bearded brethren out there. Now, where Enshrouded really shines is its server customization. Whether you're playing solo, hosting a small private server for friends, or diving into a larger community experience, the options are excellent. You can tweak everything from the loot generosity and enemy difficulty to how fast your plants grow, letting you tailor the game to your playstyle. Want a chill building focused experience? Done. Prefer a hardcore survival challenge with relentless bosses? That's on the table too. This flexibility makes Enshrouded feel like it's as much your world as it is the game's. Your journey in Embervale begins humbly, waking up in nothing but a pair of shorts, completely unarmed, and surrounded by the eerie remnants of a fallen kingdom. The game wastes no time in pushing you into survival mode. Your first task? Gather materials and start building a base to shield yourself from the dangers lurking in the Shroud. It's a classic survival loop, but Enshrouded adds a touch of creativity to the mix. The world is voxel based, letting you carve out the terrain to suit your building needs any way you want. From simple huts to sprawling fortresses, the game gives you the tools to craft something uniquely yours. The early grind for materials is straightforward but rewarding. Each plank of wood or chunk of stone feels like progress, and before long, your base starts to take shape. A safe haven in this new world. But don't get too comfortable, the Shroud is always watching, and danger is never far away. Building a base is just the first step in your fight for survival. To keep the adventure moving, Enshrouded uses quests to draw you into the Shroud. These are generally generic fetch quests, but they're designed to lead you deeper into the unknown, forcing you to face tougher enemies, uncover hidden lore, and scavenge for rare resources. Whether it's hunting a dangerous boss or finding ancient artifacts, each quest feels like a significant step in your journey. I need to say that early on, the Shroud is a deadly threat. You can only survive for maybe 5 minutes. However, with upgrades to the Flame Altar and skill points and consumables, it eventually loses its danger and becomes just another zone to explore. I personally would like to see them maintain a little bit more of that sense of peril and urgency that you find at the start of the game, as the Shroud is the namesake of Enshrouded and should remain relevant throughout the game. These quests are the game's way of nudging you forward as the quest chains progressively unlock helpful NPCs that provide recipes for new items, as well as even more quests that have you venture further out into the massive world. Exploring this land is nothing short of exhilarating. Embervale is vast, diverse, and packed with secrets, and the game gives you the tools to make the journey both engaging and accessible. Whether you're traveling on foot, gliding through the air, or unlocking the fast travel system, moving through the world feels fluid and rewarding. Spires are a standout feature in exploration. These towering structures act as landmarks and fast travel points spanning across the 5 diverse biomes, and they are filled with traps and puzzles, which are admittedly a little underwhelming, but still a unique experience in their own way. The glider in particular adds a whole new dimension to exploration. It's not just a means of travel, it's an adventure tool. Spotting a hidden treasure chest or a new area from the air and planning your descent feels incredibly rewarding. It's the kind of feature that makes you want to climb every mountain just to see what's on the other side. One of the most unforgettable experiences I had in Enshrouded was tackling the first Hollow Halls dungeon with my buddy while being wildly underleveled. Was it risky? Absolutely. But that's what made it so thrilling. From the moment we stepped inside, we knew that we were in over our heads, but we couldn't resist the challenge and the potential rewards. Most survival crafting games tend to focus on open world exploration and base building, with any dungeon content being short or simplistic. And while the dungeons aren't on the level of an MMO, they're much better than what you'd expect from a survival crafter. Defeating the dungeon against all odds wasn't just a test of our skills. It was a testament to how well Enshrouded rewards determination and teamwork. Even when the deck stacked against you, the game gives you the tools to succeed if you're willing to adapt and persevere. The halls were also filled to the brim with hidden artifacts and secret tunnels, making the reward for completing it not just loot, but the satisfaction of conquering something that felt genuinely handcrafted and challenging. It's rare to see this level of detail and thought put into dungeons and survival crafting games, and it's a feature that really sets Enshrouded apart. The first set of dungeons raised the bar, and this was a feature noticeably lacking in its recent Mountain Biome edition. I hope the developers continue to refine and expand on this aspect in future updates. Now, while the combat in Enshrouded has a lot going for it, it's not without its flaws. For one, the enemies don't always feel as sharp as you'd hope. Spectres, for example, don't really utilize their spectral nature. They don't phase in and out or pull any surprises. They're more like slightly tougher archers that float. And let's talk about the bats. These guys can sometimes get stuck midair, making them more of a stationary target practice than a legitimate threat. And it's moments like this that can pull you out of the immersion and remind you that, for all its beauty, Enshrouded is still a game with a few rough edges. Overall, enemy AI could use some improvement. They're serviceable for the most part, but they don't always feel dynamic or reactive. Most enemies stick to predictable attack patterns, which makes them manageable but sometimes less engaging to fight, especially in prolonged battles. The skill tree in Enshrouded is one of its standout features, giving you the freedom to define your playstyle. Whether you want to wield heavy melee weapons, rain arrows from a distance, or channel magical energy, there's a path for you. Each branch is packed with abilities that feel impactful and meaningful, making progression genuinely rewarding. Specializing in one tree makes you a master in that field, but the system also encourages experimentation. You can mix and match skills across branches to create a hybrid build that suits your playstyle. It's a level of depth that adds replayability and keeps combat fresh. That said, not everything in the skill tree feels like it belongs. Basic movement abilities such as double jump and updraft are locked behind progression, and while they're fun to use, they feel like they should be baseline mechanics rather than skills you have to earn. Double jump, for instance, is such a core movement feature that it feels restrictive not having it from the start. And updraft, on the other hand, would feel more fitting as an unlock tied to legendary gliders. Imagine earning it as a reward. For mastering the skies, it would add a sense of progression tied to exploration rather than spending skill points on something so fundamental. Don't get me wrong, the skill tree itself is fantastic when it comes to combat customization, but freeing up those basic movement abilities from the tree would make the progression feel even more focused and impactful. The skill tree in Enshrouded isn't just about defining your solo playstyle, it also shines when it comes to party play. With branches that let you specialize as a healer, tank, or DPS, the game encourages teamwork and strategic coordination in co op. Whether you're shielding allies, healing through tough encounters, or taking down enemies from the backline, every role feels rewarding. Building a tank or healer isn't just an afterthought, it's fully supported with abilities that make a real difference in battle. Tanks can mitigate damage and control enemy aggro, while healers have access to skills that keep their teammates alive during even the most punishing battles. It's these role specific builds that turn co op into a truly seamless and engaging experience. And speaking of seamless, the co op system in Enshrouded is one of the strongest features. Players can drop in and out of each other's worlds with ease, making it simple to team up for adventures or just hang out and build bases together. There's no complicated setup, just invite a friend and jump right in. That said, the quest system isn't perfect when multiple people are involved. Occasionally, objectives can bug out, causing some frustration if you're trying to progress together. Restarting the server usually fixes the issue, but it is a small blemish on an otherwise excellent co op experience. Despite these minor hiccups, co op in Enshrouded is an absolute blast, whether you're tackling dungeons, exploring the Shroud, or just goofing around in your base. The game shines brightest when it's shared with friends. Enshrouded raises the bar for building and survival games, offering what I'd confidently call best in class construction mechanics. The tools are intuitive yet incredibly versatile, allowing you to craft everything from simple cabins to massive fortresses that reflect your creativity. And the ability to shape the terrain around your base means no two builds look the same. It's not just about functionality either. The level of detail you can add to your base is phenomenal, whether you're carving out a hidden underground bunker or designing a goofy boxer barn to troll your friends. The building system gives you the freedom to make your mark on the world. However, one noticeable absence in the base building system is a horde mechanic or any kind of real threat to your creations. You can spend hours perfecting your fortress, but it's never truly tested by the environment or enemies. There's no need to fortify against waves of attackers or reinforce your walls to hold back ferocious beasts. While the lack of a horde system does make the game feel more relaxed, it also means your base is more of a showcase than a defensive stronghold. For some players, this might be a welcome reprieve from constant assaults. But for others, especially those who enjoy the thrill of defending against waves of enemies, it could feel like a missed opportunity. Imagine if Enshrouded added dynamic events where the Shroud sent waves of enemies to test your base. It would add a layer of urgency and purpose to the building system, making every wall, trap, and turret feel like a crucial part of your survival strategy. Still, even without a horde system, the building in Enshrouded is a joy to engage with, and it's a creative outlet that enhances the overall experience. And for many, the freedom to build without interruption might be exactly what they're looking for. Enshrouded boasts an incredibly in depth crafting system that's integrated into the very core of the game. As you progress, you'll constantly unlock new recipes by recruiting NPCs, and this creates a sense of growth and discovery as your base becomes a hub of specialized craftsmen, each contributing unique crafts. As you recruit more NPCs, whether it's the blacksmith, the farmer, or a carpenter, they each have their own quest line to complete. Each step of these quests unlocks new crafting recipes, from basic items to powerful tools and equipment. It's a system that feels rewarding, with each NPC contributing their own specialty and adding depth to the crafting menu. While the crafting progression is solid, and the idea of unlocking recipes through NPCs is interesting, in practice, it did feel a bit tedious. Instead of simply unlocking new items at a central workbench, you're required to interact with specific NPCs to craft. It's neat that your blacksmith or farmer contributes unique items, but the constant back and forth between them can get repetitive. I found myself running to different parts of the base or village to access my crafters constantly, rather than having everything accessible in one spot. This can slow down the crafting process, especially when you're in a rush or trying to create a variety of items. I get that the intent is to make each NPC feel more integral to the world and progression, but I personally would have preferred having everything available at a central workbench. That way I could focus more on the fun part, crafting and upgrading, rather than running around and trying to track down the right NPC every time I need something new. It's a small issue, but one that impacts the pacing. Having recipes locked to NPCs adds a layer of complexity, but it can sometimes feel like a chore rather than a rewarding progression system. Now, let's talk about some basic quality of life. A feature that's meant to alleviate the crafting from chest issue is the magic chest, which allows you to craft directly from the chest. It's a neat concept, but it certainly saves some time compared to constantly running back and forth between storage and workstations. However, it feels like an extra unnecessary layer. Why can't I just craft from any chest right from the start? The magic chest is useful, but it shouldn't even really be an option. It would make much more sense to have the ability to craft directly from any chest from the get go. It's a quality of life change that would streamline the entire crafting experience without needing to go through the process of crafting a special chest just to get that feature. And then there's the issue of signs, something that's surprisingly absent in a game where you're building and organizing a base. Not having any way to label areas, rooms, or even chests is a real missed opportunity. Signs are a basic feature in many games like this, and their absence in Enshrouded feels odd. Imagine how much easier it would be to mark a storage area or direct players to specific parts of your base with simple, editable signs. Another small but impactful quality of life feature that's missing is the ability to hold down a button to harvest plants. Right now, you have to spam click as you run through the fields to gather them, which can get repetitive, especially when you're farming or gathering large amounts of resources. The lighting in Enshrouded is undeniably gorgeous. It's one of the standout features, creating an atmospheric world that looks stunning at every turn. Whether it's the soft glow of dawn breaking over a shrouded landscape, or the warm flicker of firelight inside your hearth, the lighting does a fantastic job of setting the mood and enhancing the immersive feel of the game. That said, while the lighting is beautiful, it can sometimes be overly dark, especially during the night cycle. I often found myself stumbling through pitch black environments, struggling to see anything unless I had a torch or a wisp potion at hand. It's immersive at first, but after a while, it starts to feel more like a frustration than a feature. I honestly found myself sleeping through the night just to get it over with, so I didn't have to deal with the darkness anymore. While I get that the intent is to create a more immersive survival experience, the darkness can feel excessive, and it detracts from the overall enjoyment of the game. It'd be great if there was a balance where the lighting still keeps the atmospheric feel, but doesn't force you into constant downtime just to avoid struggling through the dark. A more adjustable lighting system or a less extreme nighttime darkness could make the world feel both immersive and enjoyable at any hour. Overall, Enshrouded runs fairly well, and for the most part, the performance is solid. I've had no major issues during normal exploration or combat, with the game looking great and running smoothly most of the time. However, there are certain areas in the world where performance takes a noticeable hit. As you enter more detailed or densely packed environments, I've encountered significant frame rate drops and stuttering. It's not a deal breaker, but it can be distracting when you're exploring parts of the world that are supposed to feel immersive and fluid. Honestly, one of the most frustrating performance issues comes from opening the map. Every time you bring up the map, there's a massive dip in FPS, and it can feel pretty jarring. While these performance issues aren't constant, they can take you out of the experience, especially when you're in an intense situation or just trying to quickly check your map. It's definitely something that could use some optimization moving forward. Despite these hiccups, the game's performance is generally solid, and I'm hoping that future updates will address these stuttering issues to make the experience even smoother. After spending over 100 hours in Enshrouded, here are my final thoughts. Overall, I had a great time with the game, but there are a few things that could use improvement. The boss fights, for instance, were a bit underwhelming early on. However, the latest boss was a definite step in the right direction. If the developers keep pushing the quality of boss encounters like that, it'll be a fantastic addition to the game. I really enjoyed the Hallowed Halls dungeon chain. It was a unique experience, but unfortunately, the most recent Hallowed Halls that came in the Mountain update was a massive letdown, which will hopefully be fixed in the future. I absolutely loved the combat system and skill tree. The ability to customize your character's playstyle, whether it be magic, melee, or ranged, really makes every combat encounter feel fresh. That said, I'd love to see some improvements to the blocking and parry system, as well as more monster variety and AI improvements to keep things interesting as the game progresses. Now, when it comes to building, while I personally prefer a stability based system, I have to admit that Enshrouded's build mechanics are top notch for what they are. It offers so much flexibility and creativity for players who love base building, making it one of the best in the genre. The game also offers incredible replayability. After 100 hours, I could easily see myself coming back for 100 more. There's just so much to do, from crafting and building to exploring and trying out new builds. The content feels deep, and with the promise of future updates, it only gets better. At a $30 price tag, Enshrouded offers fantastic value. With future updates promised, it's clear that the game has a lot more to offer, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here. If you're into survival crafting RPGs, this one is definitely worth checking out. Well, that's my 100-hour review of Enshrouded. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I've shared my thoughts and experiences, but now I want to hear from you. What's your experience with Enshrouded? Did you love the building system, conquer the shroud, or find some hidden gems that I missed? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your take. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to stay updated on future content. Thanks again for watching. Peace out and game on.